You're not lazy, unmotivated, or lacking discipline. You're fighting against 200,000 years of evolutionary programming that's designed to keep you safe and average, not to make you exceptional. Understanding this changes everything. I'm breaking down the three primitive brain mechanisms that create procrastination, resistance to change, and fear of failure, plus the exact techniques that successful people use to override them and achieve extraordinary results. Your brain's survival programming. What if I told you your brain isn't designed to make you exceptional, but to keep you alive and average? Think about it. Your brain evolved during a time when surviving until tomorrow was the priority, not crushing your monthly goals or building that side hustle. Your brain developed its core programming roughly 200,000 years ago when humans were wandering the savannah, dodging predators, and searching for food. Excellence wasn't the goal, consistency and safety were. That ancient programming is still running in your head right now, creating what I call the survival trinity, three primitive mechanisms that actively sabotage your modern ambitions. These mechanisms worked perfectly for our ancestors. When you're trying not to get eaten by a lion, being risk-averse is pretty smart. But here's the problem. We now live in a world where physical safety is mostly guaranteed for many of us, yet our brains haven't received the software update. The very systems designed to keep you alive are now keeping you average. Let's break down the first mechanism, threat detection. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment for danger, running background processes that consume mental energy and create anxiety whenever you step outside your comfort zone. Ever notice how uncomfortable you feel when attempting something new? That's not a coincidence. Studies from Harvard neuroscientists show your brain actually treats unfamiliar situations as potential threats, triggering a low-grade stress response even when there's no actual danger. What's fascinating is that your amygdala, the almond-shaped threat detector in your brain, can't distinguish between physical threats and social rejection. Brain imaging studies reveal that the same neural circuits activate whether you're facing a dangerous animal or just the possibility of looking foolish in front of colleagues. That's why public speaking feels so terrifying for many people. Your brain literally processes that presentation the same way it would process being chased by a predator. The second mechanism working against you is energy conservation. Your brain is metabolically expensive real estate. Despite making up only about 2% of your body weight, it consumes roughly 20% of your daily calories. That's an enormous energy investment, so your brain has evolved to be incredibly stingy with its resources. It's constantly looking for ways to conserve energy by defaulting to familiar patterns and resisting new, energy-intensive activities, like learning a new skill or changing an established habit. This explains why real change feels so exhausting. It's not just perception, it's biology. Creating new neural connections requires significantly more glucose and oxygen than running existing patterns. Your brain, sensing this increased demand, will generate feelings of fatigue and resistance as a way to protect its energy budget. The third mechanism is perhaps the most insidious, comfort seeking. Your brain has a sophisticated reward system that releases dopamine when you stay within familiar patterns. This creates a biochemical reward for mediocrity. Each time you stick with what's known and comfortable, your brain gives you a little hit of feel-good neurotransmitters, reinforcing the very behaviors that keep you stuck. Think about how good it feels to cancel plans and stay home, or to fall back into old habits even when you know they're not serving you. That's not laziness. That's your brain's reward system working exactly as designed, keeping you within the boundaries of the familiar. These three mechanisms, threat detection, energy conservation, and comfort seeking, combine to create what neuroscientists call your default mode network. This is essentially your brain's autopilot setting, the path of least resistance that keeps you comfortable but ordinary. It's why most people never reach their full potential, despite genuinely wanting to improve. The hero's journey, rewiring your neural pathways. Your brain's autopilot setting isn't permanent. It's more like a default program that can be overridden once you understand the neural mechanics at play. Think about the last time you attempted to build a new habit. Maybe you were excited for 3 days and then slowly slipped back into your old patterns. That wasn't a personal failure. It was your brain's circuitry working exactly as designed. But here's where things get fascinating. The same brain that resists change also possesses remarkable abilities to transform itself. Your neural pathways function like trails in a dense forest. The paths you've traveled thousands of times are wide, clear, and effortless to navigate. These are your established habits and thought patterns. When you try to forge a new path, a new habit, or skill, you're literally hacking through a dense neurological underbrush. It's supposed to feel difficult because you're creating brand new connections between neurons that haven't worked together before. Most people misunderstand this process entirely. They believe transformation is about motivation, willpower, or even personality. They get inspired, charge ahead with enthusiasm for a few days, then hit the wall of resistance and conclude, I guess I'm just not disciplined enough. But trying to force change through motivation alone is like attempting to redirect a rushing river with your bare hands. Not only ineffective, but also exhausting. Neuroplasticity changes everything about this equation. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to form new neural connections. This remarkable property of your brain continues throughout your entire lifetime. Contrary to outdated beliefs that adult brains are fixed and unchangeable, research now confirms that your neural architecture remains malleable well into your 80s and beyond. But understanding this capability is just the starting point. A groundbreaking Stanford study revealed something critical about this process. Deliberate, manageable discomfort activates your prefrontal cortex, the evolutionary newest part of your brain responsible for executive function. When engaged correctly, this brain region can override the primitive resistance mechanisms we discussed earlier. The key word here is manageable. Too much challenge triggers your threat detection system, but too little challenge fails to stimulate new neural growth. Think of it this way. The real hero's journey isn't tackling some massive challenge once. It's consistently taking small, uncomfortable actions that push you just beyond your comfort zone without triggering complete shutdown. Imagine learning a language by practicing just 15 minutes daily in a slightly challenging way versus cramming for 8 hours once a month. The daily practice creates steady neural adaptation, while the cramming triggers resistance and burnout. Those who consistently achieve their goals haven't developed fundamentally different brains from yours. They've simply learned to work with their brain's programming rather than against it. They understand that strategic discomfort, challenging yourself at the edge of your capabilities in short, manageable bursts, creates the optimal conditions for neuroplastic change. The science of implementation intentions provides another powerful tool. This research covers specific if-then planning. If-then planning means, if situation X occurs, then I will perform behavior Y. Research shows that if-then planning bypasses your brain's natural resistance by creating automatic behavioral triggers. Instead of relying on motivation, you're establishing direct situational cues that activate your new neural pathways before your default programming can interfere. For example, rather than the vague intention, I'll exercise more. An implementation intention might be, when I finish my morning coffee, I'll immediately put on my running shoes and go for a 10-minute jog. This precision creates a direct neural link between a specific cue, finishing coffee, and your target behavior, jogging. This makes it require minimal cognitive effort to execute. The implications are revolutionary. Every study on neuroplasticity confirms we can literally restructure our brains through consistent, strategically designed challenges. The human brain contains approximately 86 billion neurons capable of forming more connections than there are stars in the observable universe. This gives you almost limitless potential for transformation, not through heroic willpower, but through understanding and working with your brain's natural adaptation processes. Your brain isn't your enemy. So we've come full circle on this journey through your brain's ancient programming. Let's be clear, your brain isn't your enemy. It's more like an outdated smartphone running iOS 1.0 in an iOS 16 world. The good news, you can update the software. The most extraordinary performers throughout history didn't have superhuman brains. They simply understood the operating system and worked with it rather than against it. Look at someone like Olympic athletes who train their brains to embrace discomfort as a signal of growth rather than danger. Starting today, pick just one small area of your life for deliberate discomfort. Maybe it's speaking up in meetings or writing for 10 minutes each morning. Remember, consistent, tiny challenges create more lasting change than sporadic, massive efforts. This isn't about finding more motivation. It's about laying down new neural highways through consistent action. Your exceptional life isn't waiting for you to suddenly find unlimited willpower. It's simply waiting for you to become the architect of your own mental landscape. You already have everything you need. Now go build some new neural pathways.